The Retirement Cafe Podcast, episode 53, Life Lessons from People Older and Wiser Than You.
Retired or thinking about retirement? You've come to the right place. Welcome to the Retirement Cafe Podcast. In each episode, we bring you an important conversation with insight, tips and knowledge, all designed to help you live a fulfilling and successful life in retirement. Here's your host, Chartered Financial Planner and Accredited Later Life Advisor, Justin King.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Retirement Cafe Podcast, which is brought to you by retirement planning specialists MFP Wealth Management. This episode is the first in our series on changing perceptions of aging, and I can't think of anyone more appropriate to interview than my guest today. Despite only being in her mid-30s, Dominique Afacan was worried about getting old. To her, old age was an unhappy place, mostly filled with loneliness, rocking chairs, and possibly some tea and biscuits if she was lucky. So, together with a friend, Dominique set out to find people over 70 who made old age look more appealing. Here to tell us all about her journey is Dominique. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
No, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. So this is, I'm really excited about this conversation. But can you tell me a little bit about yourself, your background, and then where all this came from?
So I am a journalist, editor, writer by trade. Have been doing that for over a decade, and have lived in London, New York, Hong Kong. Now I'm living back in London. Finally, wow. I'm turning 40 in June. And I think this all started in my mid-30s, as you mentioned there in the intro, when I realized I was getting old and I wasn't crossing off all the requisite milestones for my age, and everything that was being thrown at me from society and the media to the beauty products in my makeup bag all suggested that aging was this terrible thing that I should fear and attempt to stop, in fact.
Right. So yeah, well, okay. So and then you must have had some chats with the Helen Cathcart, your photographer friend.
Yeah, I think.
I can imagine you sitting there over a cup of tea or maybe a glass of wine.
It was a bottle of wine.
Old.
It was a bottle of wine, which incidentally we've been told is extremely aging. And I think we both just realised, I mean, she was in the same boat as me. We're both sort of 35, I think. And we just realised that we had this joint fear that was just, we kind of realised that it was ridiculous, but at the same time, we couldn't stop. We couldn't stop feeling worried about what our future held and feeling that everything was going to become a bit bleak as every year went by. So my friend Helen is a photographer and I'm a writer. So we decided that we could do something about this fear that we shared. And we created Boulder, which was a website to start with. The idea behind it was that we would meet a selection of people who we would have typically dumped in the sort of homogenous category of old, right. and see what they had to say. And we thought, well, either they'll change our perceptions of what it means to grow older, or we'll at least sort of hear some hard-earned wisdom in the process. Right. And so we got both in the end. As soon as we started, we realized that we'd really struck a chord with everyone. And every interview we did, we kind of went along in person and met them together, and we got a lot from every single person that we met. And so the website grew and grew. It was quite a straightforward concept. It was a lovely portrait image of the person and a first person sort of monologue of their life and their life lessons.
Wow. So give me an example of some of the kind of stories that you've loved, people that you've really enjoyed meeting.
The thing is, because there are sort of two sides to every interview, because we went along in person, there's the story of the person themselves, and then there's the story of going to meet them, as in me and Helen going to meet them. So we've been all over the world. We're very lucky that we got sent all across the world to interview people. So some of the most memorable ones are just naturally the ones that were overseas. So one that springs to mind is the oldest swimming instructor in France, Pierre Grunberg, and he has been giving swimming lessons at the Four Seasons Cap Ferrat for most of his life. And so we showed up there in our little dodgy rental car and outside the Four Seasons, and got chatting to him, and he was doing the interview there in his Speedos and telling us how he swam a mile to the lighthouse before work every morning in the Med. And he was so full of life and so energetic.
Wow.
And Helen actually revealed to him during the interview that she couldn't swim. And so we ended up staying the whole day, and he gave Helen a free swimming lesson. And we just kind of found ourselves in this 5-star hotel getting a swimming lesson from this guy who was far more energetic than either of us. So there's people like that. And then there's people who have just been inspirational because of their attitude, really. Our cover star, Muffy, for example, we met in New Zealand when we were, bizarre one. We met her when we were at a friend's wedding. And the friend who was getting married happens to be the person who designed all the website and logo for Boulder. So it was this wonderful serendipity that happened when we all came together. Great. And we met Muffy on the tennis court where she was playing with, I think doubles with 3 other players who were all over the age of 80. Wow. And we sort of showed up hungover from the wedding. And we're like, oh God, what are we doing here? And Muffy just had this amazing attitude about life. So it wasn't really about the fact she was pounding aces on the tennis court. It was more that she was just so positive about everything in life. And that's not because she hadn't suffered with any trauma. You don't get to 87 without having a certain amount of tragedy. But her attitude was, she said she was inspired by tennis. She said you win some, you lose some, and you fight again. And it just felt, we always reference that interview whenever one of us is feeling a bit like negative. We're like, what would Muffy do?
That's really good. Yeah, I love that. So, that's an insight there. What are the other insights that you've taken away from all the people that you've met, which is kind of, has anything, it sounds like it has, but what's particularly changed for you in the perception that you have of now of getting older?
Yeah, I think I would be lying if I said, I'm absolutely fine about it now. I'm fully aware that aging does come with hindrances and hiccups, but I've definitely seen the other side now, and I have had my complete attitude changed when it comes to the stereotypes that I was tuning into before, and realizing that they were completely inaccurate in most cases. I think lots of the things that they've taught us about, things like love, for example, was a big one for us. We sort of thought, well, it's the end of it. If you get to 35 and you're single, then there's no hope. But we met people who were getting married in their 80s, finding love much later on in life, and everything else. They were finding new careers later in life, and they weren't dressing in the way that we felt was associated with older people, and they were very active. So all of these things that we associated with being older weren't actually, have completely changed in my mind. So wow. I no longer visualize myself age 80 sitting in a rocking chair, drinking tea and eating biscuits. And instead, I'm really excited about it. And I know that I will probably be, I hope to be, as active and relevant and tuned in to society as I am now.
So on the basis that you've obviously been talking to older people, and they've often probably retired, like our listeners, knowing how active they are, has that changed the way that you're, looking after your own self maybe as you go forward, thinking that, that's an ambition and I want to be playing tennis or swimming at 80?
Yes, it's funny that you asked that, because when we started this project, we were, we're the binge drinking generation. And I wouldn't describe myself as particularly healthy, especially my early 30s. Mid-30s, I think hangovers were just about starting to kick in properly. But I think when we met these people, we were kind of hoping that they would tell us that they drank a bottle of wine a day and they smoked 40 fags a day, and so that we wouldn't be able to, we'd be able to carry on as we were. But what we realized was that everyone we met actually did really look after themselves. So they all tended to have an exercise regime, whether that was, I remember one of the artists we met who had a trampoline in his back garden, and lots of people, just things as simple as balancing on one leg whilst cleaning their teeth. But they all did something, and they are all quite good at looking after themselves. So I think we've definitely, I mean, Helen was already much healthier than me and does lots of exercise, but I have definitely upped my game since starting Boulder.
Great. And what's the future for Boulder? I mean, there's lots of people who, I'm talking to lots of people who are very positive about age. There's lots of books coming out. We're going to come to yours in a second, but Maggie Piggott's How to Age Joyfully, Carl Honnor's, Making the Most of Our Lives.
Yeah.
There's lots of. I think there's a lot of positivity around aging now. We seem to be getting more of a message that it's not this just.
I hope so.
We're going to end up being decrepit and on walking sticks and the rest of it. But some people do face challenges, of course, around health, don't they? And community, and we know there's more isolation and things. So how do you look at the more negative sides? I mean, lots of stories about real positive people. But what's the flip side of the coin?
I think everyone is already aware of the flip side of the coin, and it's something that we talked a lot about how much we were representing that and how much we wanted to represent that. But ultimately, the whole goal of Boulder was to change those negative perceptions, because that's all that was out there before. Right. So we really purposefully focused on the positive side, because there was too much going on the negative side. I hope that doesn't translate as us ignoring that, but we just felt that we needed to shine a light on the more positive aspects of aging that we felt were being ignored. Right,
great. And so your book's just come out, hasn't it?
Yes, in
September last month. So so it's hot off the press. Tell me about the book and what it was like to put it together and the message you're trying to get across with that.
Yeah, we were delighted to get a book deal. We kind of felt, I mean, Helen's photography is beautiful, and we always felt that it would come across quite nicely in print, and we were right, if I don't say so myself. So the book is similar to the website, but it's new people, and it's also got a bit of input from us. As well as all the interviews, it's got sort of chapters that talk about what we've learned from the people that we've met. So that's things like love, health, beauty, fashion, regrets, success, even death we talked about, and sort of what we've learned about those topics through meeting these people.
Great.
So, yeah.
And how's it been received?
Really well, yeah. It's had a very positive response, and we've been getting lovely press, and we couldn't have hoped for more. Good.
So what's the future for Boulder? Where do you go next? I mean, it's an amazing journey so far.
It's a good question. I don't know. I mean, we're carrying on doing interviews for now, and we're very busy with promotion of the book. I think probably the next thing for us would be thinking about taking it to TV, perhaps, but we'll see. We're not too sure yet.
Yeah. Well, I think it's definitely true that we can all gain inspiration by inspiring people. And if that, and if that's what this message I hear from you and coming through from the book and all the people that that if we can reflect on ourselves and the inspiration that you've received by going through the journey yourself, just changing attitudes, etc., then it's definitely a mission worthwhile, I think. So well done you, by the way.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
Fantastic. So, well, we're going to need a roundup, but before I go, where can people find more about you, the website, the work that you do, and if they want to get in touch?
So the website is www.be-boulder.com, and that's be-boulder.com. Our social media is @being_Boulder, and the easiest way to find our book is probably on Amazon, although we have just been launched in Oliver Bonus, and I think if you type us in, you'll find us in Waterstones and WH Smith's and all the other shops.
Fantastic. Well, that's brilliant. I'll put all those links in the show notes, so that people can just hit that and find out more about you. Once again, thank you for your time, and I wish you all the success with Boulder.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
If you'd like to find out more about Boulder, see some wonderful photos and read about some inspiring older people, or order Dominique and Helen's book, check out the show notes on our website at retirementcafe.co.uk, where you'll find some useful links. If you've enjoyed this episode, please do leave a review on iTunes to help more people like you to discover us. It really, really does help. You can also subscribe via iTunes or your preferred podcast player, so you never miss an episode. Next week, we continue with this series on changing perceptions of aging and aging well. I welcome Maggie Piggott, CBE, retired barrister and author of How to Age Joyfully, to share her retirement story. As always, please email me with any feedback or comments on hello@theretirementcafe.co.uk. So, until next time, this is Justin King, helping you feel more informed in your retirement.
Thank you for listening to the Retirement Cafe podcast with Justin King. To find out more, you can find us online at theretirementcafe.co.uk.